I have been a nude model for 2 years. It started off with sexy cosplay, then I photographed suicide girl style, and finally, when I had people up to pay enough, solo porn. I used to live in a crappy kitchenette, but once I was successful enough, I was able to afford a nicer place. Things got better when I moved in with my new roommate, but also weirder. I'm not using our real names or our artistic names here because I'm scared as fuck. My new roomie, Savannah, was a cheerful and sweet girl. Her perky personality had flocked plenty of followers and fans, way more than I had myself, and she was making some good money. For instance, she was a homeowner at 22. Her place was huge, and she decided to rent her extra room for an attractive price, as long as the other resident was fine with her vast collection of sex toys being displayed in the living room. I thought that was hilarious and we immediately hit it off, so the other resident became me. The fact that we were both nude models helped our friendship, but to be fair, I'd met some other girls in my field before, and most of them were a stick in the mud. Savannah was nice, tidy, and amazingly respectful of my personal space. She didn't act like she owned the place, even though she literally did. I had spent a good few months before things started to go south. So, Ayla, Savannah approached me over breakfast. Would you be willing to collab with me? I have a request for a private 2-girl job and I thought it made sense to invite you first since it will be so much easier to arrange our schedules. I wasn't doing much, just my nightly streaming, my regular sets and my sets for Patreons. I asked more about the job. Well, she laughed. I have to tell you, it's one of a kind. It's nothing dehumanizing or anything, but it's weird as fuck. This guy. He jerks off to shadows. He wants us to pretend we're fucking them. Fucking the shadows? I asked, and laughed loudly. She confirmed, laughing too. It was insane, but relatively harmless, like when some guy paid me $5,000 to legally bind me to not show my feet to any other man but him for a whole year. So I only take my socks off to shower, and it's been months since I don't go to the beach. When Savannah told me how much the client was willing to pay for such a thing, I was immediately in. It will be so embarrassing, but kind of fun, right? I said. Yeah, and with that I can finally stop taking private requests and focus on other things, Savannah replied, happily. She's sort of a do-it-all artist, model, photographer, painter and so on. A few more email exchanges with shadowfucker at redacted.com and he had approved of me and discussed the details with Savannah. He wanted 2 videos a week, on Mondays and Thursdays, and each should be at least 30 minutes long. A very reasonable request, considering that, with my share of what he was paying, I could drop everything else and still live comfortably. He would send us the equipment before the first week, then outfits every 2 weeks. I was the one to receive the large box from UPS, as Savannah wasn't home. I knew she had a P.O. box to avoid disclosing her real address, but this one came straight to our place. Weird, but considering how big this client was, I could understand her making an exception for him, and didn't say anything about it. Later that day, we opened the box. It contained some light strobes, a few large but hollow wooden and metal objects, 8 sets of costumes, wigs included, a photograph and a small package marked otherworldly condoms. Wow, imagine being this lunatic. Savannah grabbed the little package laughing, then opened one of them. They looked nothing like regular condoms, they were more like those plastic bags you use to freeze stuff, but the material was so much thinner and slightly iridescent. That's probably something he made up to make it more realistic, right? I asked, then read the instructions aloud. When having sex with the shadows, make sure to protect your whole groin with otherworldly condoms. They can unfold to thrice its size. The outfits were actually cute and we spent some time deciding when we were going to use each of them. The client had perfectly guessed our sizes. Then the photograph finally caught my attention. It showed the right way to arrange the equipment on the room, but funnily enough, the room depicted was incredibly alike to Savannah's studio, our 3rd bedroom. Unlike me, she didn't often film/shoot in her own bedroom, preferring to use a mostly neutral room where she could set up scenarios or just take cleaner pics and videos. I couldn't help but feel that the picture had been taken exactly in her studio, at the very place we lived. The day of our first video came, a Monday. It didn't take us more than 15 minutes to set up the whole equipment on the studio exactly like the picture showed. The objects projected large shadows on the room, and the lights were set to slowly move on their own, so our interaction with the shadows was like the strangest sexy dance, but at least we weren't standing still for half an hour pretending to fondle the same empty spot. Despite thinking that it was wacky, Savannah was a professional and she diligently used the otherworldly condoms as requested. I used them as well, and for 35 minutes, we pretended to fuck shadows. I felt utterly ridiculous, but being used to doing solo videos, I pretty much knew how to do it. The color of the lights and the outfits really helped set a soothing mood that made it all less shameful. Savannah then turned off the cameras and looked at me. It wasn't awful, was it? It was okay, I agreed. I could make a fool of myself for some good money. Do you want to shoot a second one and end this week early? Before I could reply, her phone buzzed loudly. From unknown number. Remember, shoot twice a week. Separately. We stared at each other in confusion. Maybe there's a mic hidden in the equipment? I suggested. We searched the whole room but found nothing. I didn't think much about it. Rich people are controlling. They know things, always. The client knew when we were going to film the first video, and of course he figured we would consider doing everything on the same day instead of having to disassemble the set and reassembling it again. I went about my day, and nothing strange happened. Savannah seemed much more alive because now she had time for her hobbies, and I was doing well enough to start sending my family some money, something I had wanted to do for a long time. We were to send him the first video on the day we recorded the second and so on. On Thursday, Savannah told me the client loved our first video, and looked forward to the next. To get us a little more comfortable with our weird thing, we had some wine and put on jazz music. This time things went smoothly, but I kept hearing some humming while we pretended to fuck the shadows. I was sure it wasn't coming from the music. I asked Savannah and she didn't hear anything. Maybe you're a bit drunk? Slow down on the wine next time, home girl. For our video number 3, I was completely sober and asked Savannah to do it without music. She agreed, and in the total silence, I still heard the humming. It was a humming that wasn't there before, and it didn't come from the light strobes either. I was so focused on it and intrigued that my face looked really unsexy, and Savannah's editor called to ask if there was an issue. She just keeps listening to some humming. Yeah, I'll tell her to see a doctor. Think you can mostly show her from behind? Cool, you're an angel. Savannah looked more worried about me than anything else, so I promised to see a doctor. Maybe something was wrong with my ear, even though something only felt off while we filmed the videos. At least now I could afford some high-quality healthcare. Between the filming of videos 3 and 4, I got my ears checked, but they were perfectly normal. Savannah reiterated that it was totally cool if I wanted to give up on this freaky fetish video thing and she would get another girl for that, no hard feelings. But I didn't feel like the videos were the problem. There was just this weird thing I couldn't quite understand. On video 4, Savannah was tipsy and seemed to be really enjoying herself. I felt a little guilty that she was clearly overcompensating for the fact that I was worried and gloomy on the previous video. The humming evolved to whispers. And for the first time, I heard, no, it was more like understanding for the context, with the intuitive side of my brain, a few words. I actually like this. At last that's what I foretold that the whispers said. It probably sounded more like Solsisels Dilzal Swalls. Once again, I didn't tell anyone. I was almost convinced that I was actually being crazy. It was just an eerie feeling because I was stripping to and groping empty spaces twice a week. On the Friday after recording video 4, we got a new box with outfits. There was another photograph, instructing us to rearrange the lights and boxes to, I imagine, create different shapes with the shadows. I couldn't restrain myself this time. Savannah, don't you think this pic looks exactly like your studio? Yeah, that helps a lot, right? She smiled, and then slowly realized what I meant, her smile withering. She grabbed the photo from my hand. Oh, now that you said it, it's quite alike. But of course no one broke into the house, right? I think that's a standard room. But she sounded shaken. I think that's the reason why she completely forgot the otherworldly condom. We made the preparations as usual, changed the setting as the photo instructed, dressed up, put on our wigs and makeup. The whispering immediately started, and for a moment I got lost in it, trying to understand. A buzzing sound, then another. There's food today. It tastes good. Then Savannah screamed. I didn't realize she wasn't wearing the otherworldly condom either, not until I saw her groin covered by the blackest of blacks, then her legs disappearing into the darkness of the shadows. Like she was involved by long and thick pieces of deep black fabric, her torso and head disappeared too. She didn't seem to be in pain, but in shock. Everything was so quick and uncanny. I reached out for her, but there was nothing there. My hands grasped thin air. I immediately turned off the light strobes, turned on the normal lights and moved all the boxes around. They were still hollow as ever and Savannah was nowhere to be found. I then searched the whole house fruitlessly. It's ludicrous to say that, but shadow people took my friend. I sat on the floor and cried, worried about Savannah and about what I would tell the police about her disappearance. I was a mess, and decided to cancel my live streaming that night for personal reasons. As soon as I opened the browser, an email notification popped on my screen. From shadowfucker@redacted.com. It's not your fault that your friend neglected my one rule. I like you, Ayla. The editor tried to cut off your face from the last couple of videos, but I do realize you are accomplishing something I was never able to, learning the shadow people language. Keep working for me and all your financial concerns will be taken care of, especially regarding your teenage sister and her 2 children. I'll deal with everything regarding Savannah as well. Find me a new second girl for the videos, the cash and outfits will keep coming. It's up to you to instruct her to always use the otherworldly condoms, I don't mind feeding them.